Might be close to a minute today. It's a little slower today. Make it a marketer Friday. Happy Super Bowl weekend. And if you're watching the video stream, soon to be baseball season for those who celebrate. So it is an exciting time, Jess, as I know that we've done this 4 seasons now. And I know what your focus is on is who's going to do what at the Super Bowl. And you always ask my opinion. And I think I tell you the same things that I'm kind of always late to the game or I watch the links afterwards because I zone out during the commercials. But I got a different take for you for this year because I have already pronounced DoorDash the winner of the Super Bowl with their 50-cent beef ad that went out yesterday and series that they'll be promoting around 50-cent beef. And most importantly, Jess, this is why brand talent is so important. The person who ran Duolingo, well known in the social media community, Zaria, I saw this come from DoorDash. She's now at DoorDash, and now Duolingo is up at DoorDash going hard with beef for the weekend. So they're in their 50 era, Jess, and I'm excited to see what the other brands will be up to this weekend.
Since the Super Bowl commercials have already been released, we all can look at them. I love when they say, "Oh, what would it? It was like a surprise release, or they leaked out." I'm like, no, we all released them early so you can start to talk about it. My
Yep.
eyes are on the Olympics. That's what my focus is going to be on. Tonight is the opening ceremony. I love the Olympics, and I think the commercials are going to deliver.
Have you seen too, outside just the commercials? So the broadcast for the Super Bowl is NBC. They are actually sending the portions of that team immediately after the Super Bowl out to the Olympics. I was reading that it's basically like Super Bowl has ended, broadcast team boards the plane and goes. It's like we talk about some of the work we do in marketing and travel and whatnot, Jess. I know there's sometimes, especially when I change time zones, there's a little bit of that lag. Could you even imagine going from that intensity to another, like in sequential days, basically?
I mean, definitely not for me, but I think they'll be okay.
A lot of coffee, a lot of adrenaline, and a lot of brand we're going to talk about today. So I'm really excited that this syncs up in today's discussion with Super Bowl coming. We have talked about this topic a little bit before through the last few seasons, and I'm really excited that we have a veteran presence to talk about challenger brands, challenger branding. What does that exactly mean? We're bringing John Gumas onto the program. He is president at Commit Agency. And John, I am super excited for two things: to have a great marketing discussion, and second off, that you may have a better baseball display for those of us watching the video than I have. So I've got life goals to catch up to you, but huge thank you for coming on today and talking about some important branding discussion.
Andy, Jess, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're going to start off. This is the question of season 4 of the program. Each season we have has a little bit of a theme. What we're asking you is, we all live in the AI world. We're about to watch a lot of AI Super Bowl commercials. You might even find some brands that want to troll the AI conversation. I'm curious how they take that. But for you, as a marketer who's done this for decades now, in an AI world, how are you still showing up authentic to work in your day to day?
Now that is a really good question, and the scary part of that question is I think my answer 6 months from now will be different because it's moving so quickly. But just in terms of brands, right, and marketers and all of the speed and impact that's happening through AI, the world just seems to be going faster and faster and faster. And to me, add to that is everywhere you look, every social media platform, there are outside influences, right? So-called experts in everything, telling you this is better, that's better, do it this way, it's so easy to start second guessing who you are. All right, this expert says this, that expert says that. But at the end of the day, like any brand, we as marketers, whether it's ourselves as people or our companies, the brands we represent, have to stay true to who we are. You have to stay true to who you are. And if you go through the initial process, the discovery process, the identification process of understanding what makes you different and what your niche is in the market and how you own that, then you know what, you will be okay. And as long as you stick to your gun, stick to who you are, and be true to who you are, most of that fluff will fly right by you. But yeah, you're right. It's from our clients' perspective, they're always coming to us. What about this? What about that? Hey, like, so slow down, calm down. All good, all good. So yeah, that's the one thing that I see and see a lot of actually.
Okay, I love this idea. So, on the topic of staying true to who you are, I have to go there because, again, Andy mentioned your background, super incredible. I want to know, tell us a story about the baseballs and how, or when did you get the first baseball in this collection?
Wow, the first baseball in the collect that I don't know if I can tell you that, it was so long ago, but I can tell you every single baseball behind me has a story. Whether it was, and they're all signed, whether it was signed by someone, in a business setting that we were doing something for, and there was a baseball player there, or there was from another client perspective, or just some of my work as being a board member of the San Francisco Giants Community Fund. From all of those just life experiences, it just became one of those things, and then people knew I started collecting them, and as thank yous, they would give me something, and then it even got beyond that to like trading them. And so there was a guy, and it was on the East Coast, who was a professional. I'm not a professional. I just love baseball. Knew I had some autographs that he could not get. So he traded me a Babe Ruth baseball for a couple of these other baseballs. And he and I had done some trades like that over the years. It just became fun. And all of a sudden, I've got this office filled, and it's the only room my wife lets me keep them. So so I've got this office filled with hundreds and hundreds of signed baseballs, and it's just like I said, I look at every single one of them, and it's a memory.
So let's take these memories from John, your brand and your authenticity you're bringing to your day to day. Now, let's talk a little bit about your career and how this comes together. You already talked a little bit about sitting on the board with the Giants, but I know that between some of the boards you're on and also your career at Commit Agency, you've done a lot of different things. You've worked with a lot of different brands. You've built the challenger marketing aspect into the things you do. So tell us kind of how all this comes together and how you got from A to Z where you're at today.
Sure. Well, my story started over 40 years ago, when I got my first job in an agency, and I was, I have actually a degree in marketing out of San Francisco State University, and so I was 12 years old when I started. Just joking there. um, 40 years, but it's been a long career. But I can give you, and it's how it started. I was working for a fairly, I'd say a good size agency. They're considered mid-size today's standards. And it was my first job, and I was there about a year. And I would sit on these meetings, these new business meetings, where these prospective new clients would come in, which I thought had incredible products, incredible ideas. And the first thing the owners of the agency would ask is, well, what's your budget? And if it wasn't, I forget that, let's say $1 million for the sake of this example. If it wasn't $1 million, they would say, sorry, can't help you. This happened time and time again. And then one prospect in particular came and same thing. And so I walked them out. We were going down the elevator, and I go, it's such a great idea. He says, what are you going to do? He says, I don't know. And he looks at me and says, why don't you help me? So that's where the agency started. So little history, it's the agency 40 years ago was called Gumas Advertising. So Gumas Advertising about a year ago merged with Commit Agency. Commit and Gumas were sister agencies for years, and the owner of Commit, Dave Rawls, is just a wonderful dear friend and a great honest guy. And so we decided, let's put the agencies together, and so we did that about a year ago. So Gumas is now part of Commit. But during that time, we were working with clients, and we coined the term challenger brand marketing, because it's this whole process. If you're up against bigger competitors, and I define bigger by resources. Most people think of resources as marketing budget, and it typically is the number one reason. But it can be retail locations, it can be sales force, it can be brand recognition, it can be a lot of things. But if you're up against bigger competitors and you're trying to go head to head, you're going to lose that battle every time. And that's what typical marketers would do, right? They would just try to go up against these larger competitors. So we developed over the years this methodology called challenger brand marketing, and we wrote a book on the process, and it really helps companies who are up against bigger brands. Like, for example, Pepsi's a challenger brand, right? Coke's the gorilla. And you look at all of these challenger brands, and you don't think of them as challenger brands, but they are. And they have to outthink versus outspend. They have to out-strategize versus outspend. But most companies, most brands think that they just need to plow forward and just spend as much money as they can. And the problem with that is you typically going to get outspent, and you're typically not going to ever achieve what you're hoping to achieve, because you're not playing on a level playing field, right? You're playing on a playing field that is being dominated by one or more competitors, and that is not a good place to be.
Andy and I are very familiar with the challenger sale type model. Is there a world, there is a world, but tell us more about how challenger brand marketing and challenger sale can come together.
Sure. I mean, it's again, it's we talked about it. In marketing, whoever spends the most money in the conventional way, in the conventional world, which most people market in, it's whoever spends the most money wins, right? So all the other brands, challenger brands specifically, cannot compete. And they need to understand that. Brands need to understand, first of all, they're a challenger, and that they have to do things a little differently. So, again, you can't outspend, but you can outthink, you can out strategize. So the whole challenger brand marketing methodology is designed to level this playing field. And more importantly, it's designed to eliminate guessing and assumption, because most brands, what they do is they think they know exactly what their strategy needs to be. They assume they know exactly what they need to say to a prospective customer to get that customer to choose them over a competitor. They assume this. So what we want to do is eliminate that guessing. They need to identify a specific niche, right? They need to identify and own that, to where no one else can compete against them. And that's key, because they can't be everything to everyone, right? But they could be something very, very special to a specific niche. And then with that comes their positioning, right? How do they position themselves so they can successfully differentiate, and they can successfully create messaging and strategy built on that extreme focus? Because any company, if they can own a brand, or excuse me, if they can own a niche for their brand, that's where the challenger brand marketing strategy and methodology comes into play. Because then it allows them at that point to maximize the resources they have. And that's the last thing I'll say about challenger brand marketing is it's not about spending as much money as you can. It's really this almost reverse engineer methodology, where you look at what's the total resource you have to spend. What is it? And you build the strategy based on that. And what you may find within the resources, there's a lot of things you can't do and shouldn't do yet. But as you systematically grow your business, then you can start including more and more. But if you look at challenger brand marketing as a ladder, right? You're not trying to jump from the ground to the 10th rung. All you're trying to do is get to the next rung, and then the next rung, and then the next rung. That is a very doable, that is a very achievable strategy. And it's typically, most challenger brands have the resources to do exactly that. And that's what we do, and that's what the whole methodology is built around. And it's built around this real simple concept that you get one chance to be successful. You better not screw up. right? You better make sure every decision you make is based on fact, based on data, not based on assumption or guessing. And that is at the heart and soul of challenger brand marketing, is that. Um, so
John, I like a key point you point out here, and this will lead into, I think that a lot of our audience, we like to talk to marketers and like, how do you get the most out of your marketers? How do you retain marketers on your team more than that 1 to 2 years average that we're seeing right now? We're seeing them hop everywhere. What you're describing, marketing for a challenger brand, I think fits the story of someone who comes into a creative brand lens. Like a lot of times we ask marketers on this show, why did you get into this? What drives you? And the thing that I never hear is, yeah, what drives me is I want to get 15% lower cost per leads. Like it's talking about what you're talking about. It's like building up the rungs. And what I find ends up happening a lot with companies is they grow 100%, they grow 150%, they grow 200%. They have these knockout years, especially in their early days, and then they expect that to continue. What I hear you describing is as you continue up the rungs, like it might get even more challenging because you're playing in a deeper, bigger pocketbook once you start moving up. So my kind of question to this is, what drives marketers in this? Like, how do you continue that drive? How do you continue to enable them to where, okay, we're a challenger brand. We built story, we built concept, we built creation. Now all of a sudden we wake up 8 years later, we're big brand now. Like, what keeps that drive going for a marketer to want to keep doing this thing the way that they were doing when you first started?
yeah, well, you know what? I'll use a baseball analogy since we're I think that's relevant here. And I used to play college baseball and still play baseball. And you can have a bad game, but all you have to do is square up that ball one time, and you feel really really good about yourself. Golf, right? Same thing. You have a bad day golf, but you'll remember that one time you just nailed it right down the fairway. I think marketers have a similar mindset where it's the wins and however you can get the wins. And for I can tell you for me and our agency, it's this idea that when you hit your goals and the celebration that comes with that and the excitement that comes with that, it's not always about the incredible creative campaign, the great TV commercial, the great it's where you can get your wins, and it's the wins that drive the competitive nature, and it's the wins that really keep folks going. And then we create a team atmosphere. It's that team working together. It's like any team, right? Baseball, football, basketball, soccer, pick the sport. There's something about the camaraderie of that team and the team coming together to achieve all of these objectives for clients. And I think it's important for clients too to recognize that with their agencies. And when they do deliver, it's important for the clients, to, hey, pat them on the back, say, great job, well done. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? We're all humans. We're working together and just trying to, to keep motivated. But the more you win, the more you achieve your objectives, the more you stay motivated within the team.
I love that. And as a former athlete, I could not agree more. I'm really curious, I'm going to ask the AI question, but I really do think it applies. I want to know, how does AI fit into this process?
Yeah, that I think for agencies right now is probably the biggest dilemma for them. But I can tell you how I feel and how I strongly feel about that. And to answer that question, I'm gonna separate marketing into two buckets: the creative bucket and the implementation bucket. Okay, so the implementation, how do you get the message out? So let's start with that, because that's where I think AI has a place and where AI needs to be, because AI is an incredible tool when you look at analysis of data analytics. It just accelerates. What our team would take weeks and weeks to do now takes hours, if not days. from a media planning perspective, whether it's traditional media or digital media, creating those programs, looking at the analytics, doing the comparisons, all that used to take weeks and weeks and weeks, now takes hours or days. Anything that is analytical in nature, anything that is data in nature, anything that is numerical in nature, even I mean, we have found now that we even from we do a lot of competitive analysis for our clients. What are their competitors doing? We have built AI agents now that monitor their competitors on a real time basis. All right, imagine the amount of folks you'd have to have, right? The hours you'd have to put in to do that. So AI works phenomenally from that perspective. Okay, so let's move over to the creative perspective. Messaging in particular, because that'd probably be the easiest way for me to describe it. Messaging, all right, needs to be authentic. This is everything you do from a messaging perspective needs to be humanized, right? It's not a brand, but that brand's a person. So it's me speaking to you, right? It's me, it's that warmth, it's that authenticity, it's that trust, it's that believability, it's that credibility that all needs to come from a message because that's what people want. So think about, for example, so we've been talking now for 15, 20 minutes. What if all of a sudden I said, by the way, I'm not a real person, I'm a bot? How would you feel? Right? Would you say, wait a minute?
I think Jess would
on.
cancel the podcast.
Yeah.
She'd be like, we're not going any further.
I'm very violated right now. This is not right.
You would feel very violated. So we did have one client not too long ago that one of their creative folks internally decided to do a little campaign of all AI generated, and they happened to be in the financial industry, financial institution. It was a mid-sized institution, and their customers went ballistic. Someone found out, and it went viral, and all it was this. How could you not care about us as your customers? And we were, you're a financial institution. We have an intimate relationship, and you don't respect us enough to have a person speak to us. So it really backfired on them. And so for that reason and a few others, what we try to do is we still maintain the creative, the messaging, the development of the messaging, the human touch. We try to make sure a human's involved with that. And because AI is, especially for challenger brands, right? Where challenger brands, again, you get one shot. You don't have the luxury of swinging and missing. You really don't, because every dollar you spend is so valuable. So to us, it's just not worth the risk, not worth the potential backlash of what can happen if you start developing that messaging, that outbound, campaigns through AI. And like I said, maybe a year from now, 6 months from now, that position will change. But between us, I don't see it changing for a while until humans become robots. All of us. I think that's going to remain the case because we still want authenticity in our life, right? We still want brands we can trust and brands we feel are honest and legitimate and have our best interests at heart. So that's how I would look at AI. I'd separate them in those two buckets, and there's a good and not a bad, but there's a place to use it and a place not to use it.
So, John, you hinted at something that I wanted to talk about in our next question, and that's you doing challenger brand work within a financial services sector, which Jess is a lot more familiar with this vertical than I am. I've dabbled in it, so like a couple projects here and there, but I have worked in very highly regulated fields such as healthcare, government, education. So kind of get the process. It's a little trickier to go out there and take big swings. Tell us how you think about that, even beyond the AI example. When you've worked across this sector, what does it take for them to take their big swing when obviously there's huge players in this financial services game?
Yeah, I think it's the big swings and for let's just use credit unions and community banks, like a mid-size as our example, because that's easy to describe. And so most of them don't have the resources to take big swings. But again, this is a baseball. You start off with baseball. Singles win two, right? Singles and doubles win two. And if you consistently hit singles and doubles, those are a lot less expensive, and those are a lot more long-term effective. Where you might hit one home run every other year, but you'll hit singles every single day. So kind of staying within your means. But the one thing, though, I would say about the financial institutions, credit unions, banks, is the one thing they don't realize always is that they all sell the same thing, right? They all sell the same thing. And whether it's a bank, a credit union, a fintech, which fintech's a little different because they don't play by the rules, which makes it really unfair to banks and credit unions. But another story we talk about. But they all sell the same thing. They're one auto loan might be a quarter point less or but it's basically the same thing. So what they typically end up doing is sell product first. They sell product first. We got a great car loan, we got a great home loan, we got a great HELOC, whatever it is. The problem with that is the customers on the bank side, the members on the credit union side, the types of new customers they get are transactional. They're transactional. So for any credit union or bank, within that category, you want customers that are going to buy multiple products. They're going to have their home loan, they're going to have their credit card, they're going to have their bank loan, they're going to have all that with you. But if you're promoting product first, then you kind of fall into, you become more and more of a commodity. And you're falling into that trap of being more and more a commodity, where customers are looking for where's the best deal, the cheapest deal. What we do and what we convince all of our credit union and financial services clients is the one thing that is unique to you that nobody else can own or really challenge you on is your brand. Okay, so instead of selling product, how do you create a movement, right? How do you create this idea of emotional drivers that are behind the decision-making process? I'd rather do business with an organization that supports my community, and I'm willing to pay a quarter point or a half point more on my auto loan. How do you kind of alleviate the trust issues, the fear, I want to belong, confidence, control, the belief, all those emotions, right, that are not in a product or in a product pricing, but those are ultimately the reason why someone does business with you. And that's the ultimate reason why you're different. So then the question is, how do you go through the process of understanding and discovering what that true essence and differentiation is of your organization, your credit union, your bank, especially when all your competitors are so very similar to you? So we go through a very, very structured, 40-year proven process that helps our clients determine exactly who they are. And the one thing that happens all the time, what they think is not what their customers think. And it's when we go through that process, it's very insightful. I'm sure you guys have discovered the same thing, right? It's so easy to think, what we're doing is right, but it usually is not connected.
I love the Moneyball for marketing aspect to this, and how you're talking about it.
Yeah, there's this interesting phenomena that happens, and I'm sure you guys have seen it too. And I'm talking about, let's say us, when we work with our clients are so involved in their businesses every day, day in and day out. They know their business, they live their business, they know it better than anyone else ever will. So they expect the market to also understand who they are. But it's impossible for them to kind of step outside and look at their business objectively, like a prospective new customer or prospective new member will, and especially how they look at them versus all the competitors and all the other options those customers have. So they truly need to step back and allow a process to take over, to truly discover for them what it is that makes them different. What is that niche that they can own? What is that position that only they have? Ultimately, and what we call it for, ultimately, what can they become famous for? Right? And that's what every company needs to figure out. What is it about us that we do better than everybody else? It could be a tiny little sliver, but it's something that they can own. Because when they can own and they can ultimately become famous for it, then the market knows them. The market knows who they are. And that's how they break through the clutter. That's how they break through all of the other noise in the marketplace and become and start their growth. But I tell you, 100% of the time I've done this, 40 plus years, 100%, Jess, Andy, not 99, not 98, 100% of the time, what going into the process, what our clients tell us, this is why people do business with us, and this is what our message needs to be, is not what their customers, their members tell us that they need to hear and why they do business. So that disconnect, however big it is, right? Even it's tiny, is all the difference in the world between campaigns working fantastically and breaking through all the KPIs, breaking through all the goals versus campaigns never really achieving their full their full potential. And it's you hear a lot of times where people say, well, my marketing's not working. Well, that's usually why. And but when you go through that process to understand, it's always the most critical thing any marketer will ever go through, because now they know. There's no more guessing. There's no more assumption. There's no more hoping and praying that this is going to work. It just works because you're saying the right thing. You're building your brand. You understand what makes you different and how that differentiation needs to be articulated to new customers, prospective customers, to do business with you versus all of the other options they have. And by the way, typically for challenger brands, all those other options are outspending them many, many times to one. So again, it's a methodology. It's one that they have to really think differently about and position themselves and go through that process of marketing differently than they're used to.
John, really quickly to that point. So we've got a marketer out there that's listening to you. This resonates. They want to move from product to people. They don't have commit. Is there a simple way or activity, something that they can do to set them up or get them started on this process?
Sure. And let me tell you how we go about through the discovery process. Our discovery process looks at 3.5 key points of data. The first point of data is interviews. We interview on the telephone. A good old-fashioned telephone. Remember these? Actually, you talk on them, you talk to people. My kids have no idea what that is. But so we look at their best customers. We don't want the worst customers. We want their raving fans, best customers. We want to talk to them and understand why they love that brand. But our secret sauce, which I really can't share, is the questions we ask. Because what typically happens in research is brands will send out a questionnaire, they'll do a focus group. The problem with that is in a questionnaire, it's so easy to check off the boxes that are the easy answer, which is the easy answer. Or in a focus group, you get one or two people that influence everybody else. The problem, in fact, no, the dangerous issue that comes from that is advertisers, marketers take that as that's their input, that's their strategy. When in fact, that's not the truth. And you end up going down a path that's not accurate, it's not real. So what we want to do through our questioning is pull out from the customers, the members in a credit union perspective, is the real reason why they do business with that brand, the real reason why they love that brand, and what is the messaging, what are the actual words they need to hear. Okay, so that's step one. We talk to their members. Step two, we speak to the client, our clients themselves, the CEO, CMO, all the key decision makers within the organization, and ask them similar, if not identical questions. And all the time, what our customers tell us versus what their customers tell us are very different. That right there is just the first massive aha moment. I said, oh my God, we always thought this is why they use this. We always thought, we always show that it's not lined up. The third piece to that discovery pie, if you will, is the competitors. We look at their most key competitors. What are they saying? How are they positioning? How are they selling the same prospects we're going after? So those 3 points of data right in the middle is the essence of the brand, the essence of the message, the essence. It's any company that doesn't have that true understanding is always going to have they're never going to achieve their full potential in marketing, because I believe it's not, you can spend all the money you want in marketing, all the money you want, unless you step back and go through this process I just described. All the money you spend is never going to achieve its full return, its full ROI, its full impact, because you're just not saying and positioning yourself the way the market needs you to be positioned. So understanding that information first is critical.
So, John, you've seen a lot of different eras. One of the things I'm very outspoken on is I got into marketing in the early 2010s era. So I come through as a social media manager. Joke I always have is it used to be the Wild West. There was no budget for social media. It was you take your shot, you throw darts, and for every like 10 companies that kind of didn't know what they were doing, there was like $1 Shave Club that put out a few videos and became $1 billion company in a month. So I look at that. I look at the late 2010s, we'll say like 2018 and on, and everything just flipped like big dollars and demand gen. And I feel like, I don't know if you're feeling the same energy right now in 2026. We went through 7, 8 years of this. Companies pivoted all their brand dollars all into this demand gen, like quick fix, like boom, 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 conversion style. A lot of them are coming out of it and being like, hey, that didn't work. And I feel like it's created almost this war that I see on LinkedIn versus brand marketers versus demand gen marketers. And for me, I'm like, we're storytellers. Regardless of the budget, we're telling a story. And I'm curious, what are you seeing right now? Why did demand gen become so at war with some of the ideas we're talking about right now? And do you see this starting to resolve with some of the brands you work with?
Yeah, you know what? It's so different with each company, but you're right. I hear exactly what you're talking about. But I would say at the end of the day, right, the boards of these companies, the CEOs of these companies, they're held to performance. Okay, at the end of the day, right, they're held to performance, and we as marketers need to understand that, and they need to be able to show that what they're spending and what their marketing programs are actually working. At the same time, we'll go back to our credit union example, right, where they're all selling the same product, and you need to promote your brand, you need to build your brand, because that's part of the demand gen results and success. So the whole concept of the challenger brand approach is really designed to do both simultaneously. I think in traditional marketing, it's really looked at two different silos. You have demand gen over here, and you've got brand over here. But really, they need to be meshed together. And that's what challenger brand marketing is about, because they both feed off of each other, right? Consumers want to feel good about the companies they're doing business with. And there's this really interesting phenomena that we're seeing, and I bet you're seeing it too, is all of us as consumers, you, me, everyone we're talking to, everyone that's listening, as consumers, we don't want to be sold to, right? So the minute you feel someone is selling you something is the minute you go, ooh, wait a minute, I'm not sure if I trust that brand. I'm not sure if I'm going to be part of that. They just want my money. It's a real issue. So the question is, how do you sell without selling? Okay, that's where this merging, this melding of brand and demand gen kind of come together. Because the brand is all about, talking about who you stand for, talking about how you believe what your customers believe, how you support what your customers support, because that is selling without selling. Because now people want to be part of something like that, especially like credit unions and banks and stuff like that. Well, any brand really. So they want to be part of something. So people then tend to want to buy something from you, or listen to what you have to offer when you do have a demand gen request, because it's all melded into the brand. It's all part of it. It's not just sell, 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 because, unless you're selling, I don't know, bubble gum or candy bars or something like that, there's not a lot of emotion that goes into that purchase. But when you're talking about financial services, you're talking about other types of products and services that require a little more understanding, a little more buy-in from your consumer. That's when you really need to mold the two, and they must work hand in hand. That's really kind of at the heart of what challenger brand marketing is all about. Is bringing these together and not looking at them as silos, so you can deliver to the CEO, to the board, the goal of the achievements and the financial achievements they need, but at the same time you're not selling out the brand, you're not alienating your customers, you're not upsetting the market in any way, because all you're doing is selling. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. We agree 100%.
So, John, I want to wrap this up with this final question here, especially at the weekend that's coming. So, we're going to hit Super Bowl Sunday. We're going to see the Coca-Colas. We're going to see the Budweisers probably of the world. You're going to see the staples all over it. There's also, every year, there's new players that enter this world. And there are companies, a lot of times I'm like, I have never heard of this place. And like, there's always one that at least leaves some sort of marker, and I like go and take a look at it. For a challenger brand entering Super Bowl weekend, we talk a lot about budget. They're going to spend, this is what I always kind of had to tussle in my agency world, is they're going to spend, what is it, $8 million just to even put the commercial up, regardless of production costs. I think about what I can do with that as a $8 million yearly social media, paid search budget. And sometimes like I really cringe like hard when I think of that, because I can get in front of a lot of eyes always on. However, I do know there's some brands that have won this day. So if you're a challenger brand and you're putting all your eggs in this basket for Sunday, what do you want to see from them, and how can they win the day?
Yeah, and it's, so first of all, if my team's not in it, right, I'm watching the commercials, right? I care less about the game. And it's almost, that's what's become, right? It's become this idea of the ads and watching them. So, but from a challenger brand perspective, here's what's critical for me. And I love watching the ads. And I drive my wife and kids nuts, because, oh, Dad, really? Come on, can we just watch the game? So I'm analyzing it to them, and they love that, I'm sure. But when it's all said and done, to your exact question, Andy, it's a record $8 million per 30-second spot, by the way. That's a record. But it's not just 8 million. You got to add in production. You got to add in all the peripherals that go with that. It's a lot of money for 30 seconds of exposure to a massive audience. So here's how I look at whether it's successful or not. Barring the whole creative, you look at it, go, oh, that was fun, that was great. Oh, I love that. Oh, what a cute monkey. And barring that, because there are a lot cute animals, and animals and babies sell, as we know. So you're probably going to see a lot of animals and babies. But at the end of the day, here's what I'm going to ask everyone who asks me on Monday. I'm going to ask them, which brands do you remember? Which ones do you remember? Tell me their names, and tell me if their message was compelling enough to you to do what you're asking them to do. I mean, did they convince you to follow them, to buy something from them? Tell me which ones you remember. And from a challenger brand marketing perspective, then I will answer the question, those were the most successful ones. Because what tends to happen, and look at them on Sunday. They're just creative, they're fun. But when it's done, sometimes you go, who's that for? or what, I don't understand, what the product or service was. I don't understand what they wanted me to do, unless it's the obvious. All right, Budweiser is Budweiser's top of mind awareness. Doritos is Doritos is top of mind awareness. Intuit is trying to get you to, that you have obvious brands that are just big brands. But from a challenger brand perspective, right? The newbies, the companies that are new, and I think there's an AI company coming out for the first time. I'm interested to see. I've watched it, but I'm interested to see what the response is from their ad. But that's what I look at. I look at what impact did they make? Did they make an impact enough to where people remembered the brand name, what that brand stood for, and would I do business with that brand? If they do not accomplish those three things and a few others, but those three main things, then to me, it probably wasn't worth the, I'm going to say, 8 million. It's probably going to be with production, probably more in the realm of 12 million-ish, if not more. Was it worth $12 million versus, to your point, Andy, could I take that $12 million and do some serious damage using, digital and all the other, conventional tools I have at my exposure? That's the question. And so if they can't achieve that, then that would be my answer, but I can answer that on Monday morning.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to see your analysis, John, because we're all going to be talking about it once Monday hits. This could have been timed better. Wonderful discussion for Challenger branding. And again, give John Gumas a follow on LinkedIn if you're not. And if you're looking for some help with your brand, Commit Agency, obviously doing exceptional work over there, John. And I know I learned a lot today. So a huge thank you for joining us on the podcast this afternoon.
Oh, well, thank you, Andy, Jess. It was really fun being on with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
See you later, John. All right, Jess. So this is the first official guest I think I've heard that has a strategy of actually calling their clients' customers on the phone. I love that. I know like there are rooms I would say that in, Jess, and I'd be like, okay. People would be like, okay. But then they're also okay spending millions of dollars on these studies that they're unsure like how they were even populated. So I don't know. I loved it. I think it's a balance of time and effort, but that was one of my huge takeaways is that they're still doing old school calling to learn what the customer wants.
And what was different? I mean, I'm all about the interview for sure. I tell customers, marketers, you got to hit the streets. You got to go out and speak to people face to face. What I love with what John was saying is start, and I think this is a very tangible first step. Start with the customers that love you. I have not heard that before, and I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think with that, you are going to hear a probably larger answer. Like you're going to hear like a detailed explanation, especially if you're talking more like yearly or lifetime revenue streams here. So like, why do they stick with you? And again, there's like a multitude of tools you can use for this, but I do think there's something to just actually having that conversation. And it sounds like he's slowing down enough to figure this out. Like we have to mention a lot about speed because the whole AI play right now, again, AI speed, like we put a newsletter together, newsletter comes all the way together in less than 30 minutes. It's incredible. However, there needs to be time for speed. There needs to be time for focus. Building a brand is not about speed, in my opinion, Jess. That is something that has to be very methodical, and it has to be well thought out before you launch as much as any assets. So it's just kind of interesting. I think that's going to be the common thread we're going to have in this AI world. Like everything's marketed as speed, speed, speed. Or I think there's going to be a lot of brands that are going to get themselves in trouble by just like marketing by speed and getting stuff out there. So there just has to be a balance. Like, I don't know what that is, but I think that was somewhat what I was thinking through in our discussion today.
Yeah, the way that I think about time, I think time is a super powerful constraint when you're making decisions. So yes, I like what you're saying about John going out there, collecting the data, slowing down to do that, to have these conversations. But where you can use time as an incredible constraint is when you're making that decision or ideating or looking to push forward. Because what we don't want to happen, and what usually happens, is you get caught in that brainstorming room, and it's
You
analysis
never leave.
paralysis, and
Yeah.
you can't make a decision, and
Yeah.
then you're in real trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what ends up happening is 10% off and stock
Your
imagery because you
favorite.
got to get something. Yeah. You got to get something out the door. So, interesting thing too, when this like loops back into what we're going to see this weekend. So, he had saw like the whole production of going to a Super Bowl commercial. So I think we've talked about this for a few years now. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with the whole celebrity marketing thing. Like there is going to be 10 brands will say that use celebrity marketing, and I think 8 or 9 of them are just going to whip up Ben Affleck, they're going to whip up Jack Nicholson, and they're just going to throw them on something random, and it's just not going to do anything for me. I'm not going to remember it because I've seen it too much. Where I think about like DoorDash, for instance, what did they do? If you go and watch that spot, Jess, I'm curious if after you watch it, what your thoughts are. We'll talk about it next episode. 50 Cent, obviously, the whole thing is about him creating beef with Diddy, releasing the documentary on Netflix, well documented. And 50 Cent's kind of like, hey, like I'm doing my thing and I am speaking for women that have been sexually assaulted tied to this whole story. So DoorDash, by putting him in this commercial, and the whole thing is about they deliver beef, they in a sense are showing what they stand for as a brand by tying themselves to him, which can be a controversial character. I think DoorDash, especially because they're saying this is going to be a series, and 50 is going to be posting throughout the weekend on Instagram about this, that there's a coordinated thing. I think they are going to see a revenue increase that is going to be absurd. Like my eyes are very much locked in on how this goes because they made a stance. They attach a celebrity. They attach a celebrity who's very relevant right now. Old school celebrity, but they're relevant for other things versus trying to force it with someone that like I said, you just pick a random celebrity and throw them out there. Like this actually makes sense in my opinion.
Yes, and this is what I think we should do for Monday's episode or for our debrief recap. I think we should go over the ads using John's criteria and the
Yeah.
question.
Do you
It's
remember?
yeah, we can make it even, we can simplify it even further. Just the two questions. Do you remember the brand's name?
Mm-hmm.
And would you do business with them?
Yeah.
And I think that is how we should rate everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Let's put that criteria on there, regardless of budget, regardless of celebrity usage, like all of it. Just what do you remember? It's going to be fascinating because I even think the last few years we saw more of like the UGC style stuff popping up too, even on Super Bowl Sunday. So they'll be interesting to see if that starts to get more and more into this high paid era.
Okay, on that note, prediction time, Andy. Now I'm really curious to see this. Is LinkedIn going to leverage their current moment with Mendoza? And are
Yeah,
we going to see something from LinkedIn with Mendoza on
I
Super
would.
Bowl Sunday?
I would. I mean, like, this is me again. We have no knowledge about what's happening. If I were in that room, this is what I would prepare as a marketing play is I would do a 10-minute interview on Riverside, like we're using right now with Mendoza. He would have his stuff on. It would be like cool sit down UGC style, hopefully well lit room that he's in. I would ask him questions about what he is looking for in his future employer in the NFL. I would ask him how he has leveraged LinkedIn for skills, and I would trim this down to like a 30-second cut, and then he would be explaining it. I've had LinkedIn graphics on there, and I would probably introduce some sort of slogan or hashtag about how LinkedIn is for everyone, including Fernando Mendoza. I can just I make this sound easy. I can produce this in Canva. Like, and that's what we're trying to get at so much more on this podcast is yes, you could go big with production, but I also think you could hit a moment right now because to your point, just in terms of athletes right now, we're talking about relevancy. Like he is at a peak. He could go to the NFL and he could be Tom Brady. He could go to the NFL in the last 3 years, and this is his peak popularity. So if I were LinkedIn, I would be trying to bet that this could be one of his peaks. And if it's not his peak and he peaks even further, we got him in before he became Tom Brady. So yeah, there's no way to lose on this. So I would be going for it.
Okay, my guess, it's looking over 50% right now, just because I saw and liked a post on LinkedIn earlier this morning where he was in San Francisco this week for all the hype up, that all the story building for the Super Bowl, and he was at a LinkedIn CMO event. So
Yep.
come
Yeah.
on, LinkedIn.
Could be taking it there. Yeah, you got to go for it.
There's prime opportunity here for
Yep.
you to leverage this moment.
Yep, he's open for work. So
He's open. He's an excellent communicator. He's a Heisman Trophy winner.
shoot, maybe it's like the next iteration of LinkedIn getting involved with the NFL. Like, how they have the stadium names, it could be like the LinkedIn Dome or or something like that.
And so to that point, I mean, I don't want to give, well, yeah, I'm going to give all the credit to Indiana University. I have now noticed, and maybe this is just the way my algorithm is set up, since again, I get a lot of Indiana content, but I have noticed just in general, the NFL teams on LinkedIn and sharing their brand story a lot more. Just in the last few months. Like, I'm seeing a lot more communication from these teams.
They really hit it out of the park with social now. These teams, like all channels, like they have like dedicated teams that are just like around the clock on these things. And I think it just really caught on. Like, I think that LinkedIn has become more of a staple in the sports world. I would say probably where LinkedIn wants them to be is like it's an organic staple, but what do they run like tickets and like ads and stuff like that? I think that's kind of the next level, but they're using it. So like I think that's where Fernando Mendoza is starting to be like the figurehead of this change we're seeing.
And Indiana for sure, because
Yeah.
it's very true. Like, in years past, I would absolutely see all of the brands sponsoring these teams. So if you've got a stadium that's owned by a tech brand, you see it called out there. But now it's like directly from these specific team pages that I'm
Yeah.
seeing. Like the thanking of the fans. Oh, we had a great season. Here's some of the highlights. And I have not seen that before on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think they're probably bringing it over from other channels and adopting it to a LinkedIn audience. I think there's been more. I think there's just like an open mix right now. I think that I don't know if you were to look at every channel. Like, I feel like there's channels that hit their peaks. They go up, they go down. I've heard some people talk about that Snapchat's coming up again, so I'm gonna have to review that. I was talking to a few marketers about this. I think there's different peaks and valleys, and I think as marketing teams, you almost trade off energy. So like one that is on the downturn, in my opinion, when it comes to brands, is less brands are more likely to do X, formerly known as Twitter, than they were 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, it's Facebook, it's Twitter. Like that is just what you do. But I think that there's always this like spectrum of moving stuff up, moving stuff down. Time is money. Where do we get good response from? And I think LinkedIn has still been a pretty positive response place. Like people, you tend to get your fans and people that want to have energy with your brand. I think that's helping them a lot by keeping it very protected with the audiences that receive the content.
Definitely. So let's talk about, too, just really quickly, Monday. Want to do this debrief? Maybe, Andy, we also do a live, maybe on YouTube. Or no, I probably just we'll do the live on LinkedIn, but it's like we want to hear from you as well. So join us in this conversation, and we can go over the ads and answer the 2 questions. But I'm like, I really want to hear from our community as well.
Yeah, what they're liking. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of talk out there. No one's gonna agree on everything or agree or disagree on everything. So it'll be interesting. you know, I don't think there's as much controversy as there used to be. Like there's like debates, but I don't think there's like a lot of commercial controversy. So we'll see. We'll see what comes up this week.
And I mean, and will the controversy help us remember the brand?
Yeah, you got to ask that. If you're a challenger brand, as we just talked about, do you need that extra oomph? Because otherwise, if you're just selling the same product, it's going to be hard to outbid the leader of the product. So, yeah, always good questions to ask. But until then, Jess, we will have our rebuttal when it comes to Super Bowl on Monday. And as always, looking for your opinions. Let us know. And we will talk to everybody soon.